Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada is now two separate ministries, one in charge of crown-indigenous relations, the other focused on Indigenous services.
There really are two levels of engagement with Indigenous peoples. One is the concrete delivery of services, whether it's ending boil water advisories, delivering on housing or mental health or health supports to Indigenous communities that are in desperate need of closing the gap in services and opportunities from the rest of the Canadian population, to the other side of building a true nation-to-nation relationship in which our laws and policies, in which the nature of the relationship between the Crown and Indigenous peoples needs to be improved, updated, needs to evolve.
Joining us now to help put things in context, APTN's Todd Lamirande in Ottawa, our co-host and producer of our political show Nation to Nation. In studio, we have our Winnipeg reporters, Shaneen Robinson-Desjarlais and Brittany Hobson. Todd, the Prime Minister says the split takes us one big step closer to dismantling the Indian Act. Will Indigenous people see a benefit in having two separate ministries?
Well, it's hard to say yet. Most leaders are being cautiously optimistic about this split. Most grassroots, though, don't like it at all. It's a doubling down of a colonial institution, is what I read online. And we're a long way from dismantling the Indian Act. This is just rhetoric at this point. I mean, you're sitting there in a province that 20 years ago tried to dismantle the Indian Act with something called the Framework Agreement Initiative. We hired all kinds of FII coordinators and all the First Nations there. They were supposed to consult their membership and come up with some kind of plan that by now, in 2017, there should be no Indian Act there. And of course, Justin Trudeau's his father also tried to dismantle the Indian Act with the infamous White Paper of 1969. I would say we're a very long way. It's just rhetoric at this point. And most leaders, like I said, just want to see what's going to happen with this split.
Shaneen, the Prime Minister also said he would eventually, in 2 or 3 generations, like to see Indigenous peoples delivering their own services. Do you feel this is a step in the right direction?
Well, to add to what Todd has said, I believe that this is just rhetoric at this point. There's a lot of things that need to be done. I think the Prime Minister is trying to stay on task with his commitment to reconciliation, but I also think it will take some time to see if this is the right step forward. I mean, we're talking about a system that's been infringed for nearly 140 years. We're talking about issues, the legacy of residential schools, health, child welfare. In order to run those systems, there's a lot of learned behaviors and things that must be overcome within the Indigenous communities, with the help of the Canadian government staying true to our treaties as well. So there's, I think, a lot of work to be done. This is the very, very first step. I believe he means for it to be intended in the right direction. We'll see how it goes. I think it'll take some time and a little bit of time to see how it's going to work out.
Brittany, nobody really knows how it's going to work out yet, but do you see this creating a lot of confusion for people on the ground, not knowing how to get the services they need?
Yes, and we're seeing it now with the way people are talking about it. I mean, we have 2 separate departments now, and really little information has been given on the departments and what they'll take over. I mean, we know that Minister Philpott, she's going to be starting to take over services, so you're looking at CFS, education, health, housing, all that kind of stuff. But then we have Minister Bennett, which is kind of this brand new organization, this crown-indigenous relations organization, and she's going to be looking at, treaty rights, land claims, and this overall ending to the Indian Act. But I mean, we don't really know what that looks like, what that entails. We're talking about Trudeau keeps talking about a nation-to-nation relationship, and I think he thinks this is one step towards that, but really we don't know what this Crown-Indigenous relationship department is going to look like and what they're going to be doing, and really little information has been given to us about, like what they're going to do, just in terms of kind of the nitty-gritty, and the 2 departments aren't going to be up and running for a couple months, so I really think that there is going to be this confusion on what's going to be done until they give us more information.
Todd, you had a story earlier in the week about some leaders being caught off guard. There was no news of this leaked out ahead of the cabinet shuffle. Did anyone see this coming?
Well, I mean, I did hear that some of the other leaders, for example, the Métis National Council or the AFN, did get some notice, but they only got a couple hours of notice. And somebody like Robert Bertrand, the National Chief of the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, he was somebody who didn't get that advance notice. But still, we're only talking about a couple of hours notice that some of the leaders got before this was dumped into their laps.
Do you think, Todd, that that's part of the nation-to-nation relationship that the Prime Minister is talking about, this couple hours notice of such a big change?
Well, I haven't heard too much criticism about the timing, except from somebody like Bertrand, like I said. I don't know if Minister Philpott knows what kind of a hot seat she's jumped into, because whenever there's a suicide crisis, a housing crisis, we're going to be going to her now. And don't forget, she was the former health minister. She was in charge of the department that, despite several orders from a Human Rights Council tribunal, has yet to fully implement Jordan's principle. So she's got a bit of baggage, I think, coming into this new position.